Good morning, and I'm so happy to see so many people that turned on their Zoom and are willing to join me. My topic today is how are we going to get through this pandemic and get through the holidays and feel good about ourselves? The picture that I have first depicted here is what I think Madison Avenue thinks are the happy holidays. And I want you to kind of notice that everybody's all dressed up and smiles all around the table, and that the assumption is everybody is doing just fine. And when I look at this picture, I don't see any political differences at the table, no bad uncle that you're worried about. Nobody's worried about, people coming from miles and miles away. Everybody looks happy. And this is the ideal. This is what, in many of our minds, we really hope to have the holidays be. But for some of us, it couldn't have been more different. This is what I think that the holidays are going to be like this year for us. The holidays, even when they were at their best, were not necessarily that first picture. I know I was from a big family, and by the time Christmas came, even though our parents were loving parents, they were very stressed out and tired and exhausted from getting ready for the holidays. But it was exciting. And as we grow into adulthood, we were excited to create the same thing for our children. But now that's an impossibility. It isn't as hard for us to stay alone as we might have thought. There's some research that points to the fact that as we get a little older, we're generally more comfortable than younger generations being alone. And I think that's probably because we've lived enough years and we've accomplished enough things that we're calmer about knowing what the future is going to bring. I want you to take a look at the new picture, and that picture looks a little sad to me. I think the only thing missing is the TV, which for many of us has become our favorite friend, our constant companion. Because I grew up in a noisy family, I generally have the TV on a lot. And because I have more time, I'm generally paying a little more attention, which isn't always the best thing, because it feels to me like in the last few months, we're getting a steady helping of fear and being nervous and not understanding what's going to happen and looking forward to nothing because we don't have anything to look forward to until this last week. As the days have passed, and I think that the days of coming together and hunkering down started right around St. Patrick's Day. I was just mentioning that to some friends. I used to live in St. Augustine, and I had gone back. And as soon as I got there, everything closed up. So I just turned around and came home. And it feels like since St. Patrick's Day, I have made every effort to stay home, to wear a mask when I go out, to be very careful where I go when I go out. And my Christmas is not going to have people around. Most of my friends have been very careful about where they go. I miss my family. I know you must miss yours. I miss having friends that come to visit from where you guys are in that 4 feet of snow that I just saw. One of the guests that's here today, Mr. Sally, showed me, and his wife showed that there's 4 feet of snow outside his front door. Well, we don't have that in Florida. We this year have the sense of being alone and feeling the pressure of not understanding what's going to come next. So I thought about this talk, and I thought about most of us are spending time thinking about what we're missing, and we're allowed. But that's not all that we have. Everything seems to be dangerous around us. If you listen to the TV, we can't participate in our normal activities. And God forbid we should even mention that thing that happened in November where they elected a president, but nobody wants to talk about it, and half of our country doesn't even accept it. These are difficult times because of not only where we're at and what's happening, but because of what we can't control. Some of the problems with our lifelong friends is are that they are living a different kind of life than we live down here in the Sunshine State. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago that the Daily Sun had an article that said that as we age, and I believe that they were speaking about our general population, we're a little more comfortable in in the idea that we're alone. We chose to move. We chose to be a little separated. It seems to me, though, that it's more important to stop thinking about what we're missing and start thinking about what we have. We need to start thinking about what do we believe in? What are we happy about? What do we appreciate? And I think, and I know that most of us that live in this very large neighborhood are fairly good at having a good time and enjoying ourselves. That's why we moved here. We are inhabitants of this great neighborhood. And I've lived here long enough to know that there are very wonderful people here. When I first moved here, there was a tornado and several houses were blown away. And it just was amazing to me by the day after how many people stepped up as neighbors to help each other. So I want you to know that for most of you around you, there is help if you need it. I think that when we decide to shift from what we miss during this time into what we have, we need to make a list. Some things in our life are more important than others. And I feel like making a list of what you appreciate is a gift to yourself. This list will give you a direction on how to spend the next few months. I made a list of the things that I appreciate. And here's my list. I want to share some of my lists with you, and maybe you would put this on your list. I am grateful that I've lived all these years. Many of my friends haven't, and even the love of my life hasn't. He left me. I'm grateful that I live in the Sunshine State. It's kind of fun to have people come and get out of the weather and enjoy where we're at. And that was a choice. I've lived through enough snow, and my heart goes out to some of you for the next few days in the storm that's going on right now. I'm grateful for my family. I'm from a big family. I had four brothers and a sister. We're not all together now, but I still am very involved with them. Thank goodness for Zoom or the telephone. I'm very grateful for them. I'm grateful for the children that I had and the children that I raised. I'm very grateful for my grandchildren. I'm grateful for the friends that I've made since I've moved here and the old friends. I am lucky enough, you guys, that my best friend I met the first day of kindergarten and we're still best friends. So I'm very lucky that I've got friends that I've had forever and ever that I don't have to explain myself to. And I have new friends. And my idea of my friends, and maybe you can think about this too, is that they're like a tapestry. They bring color to my life. They bring texture to my life. And when you get a little older, I think I'm beginning to realize that you can't get everything from one person in your life, and you can't be a person that's an island unto yourself. We really do need each other. I am grateful that I'm able to afford living here and having a little left over and paying my bills. I am especially grateful to hear that we have two vaccines on the market. What a gift that we got a couple of days ago. That gives us something to look forward to. And in life, we are healthy if we're able to see what we have and be grateful for it and turn that outwards. Gratitude, I was a kid and my grandmother told me, gratitude is an attitude that turns outward. And outward is into service. Outward is into what can you do to help other people. And if you've ever been in an organization, and I was started young, I was in Girl Scouts, and that's where we started to learn about service. You understand that that is a gift that you give to yourself too. It's a two-sided gift. You do whatever the service that you're involved in requires of you, but you also get back from those people that are needy and that are accepting your service. So it's never a one-sided thing. It's always a two-way communication. I'll tell you one of the things that I miss, and I think that all of you are missing, is physical touch. We need to be able to hug each other and touch each other. I came from a family that a lot of that didn't go on, but as I got older and was a teacher in a middle school, and I'm not very tall. For some reason, the kids like to hug me and hang on me, and I was okay with that. I'm used to that. But in the last few months, everybody is sort of afraid to touch each other. Um, for Thanksgiving, friends of ours, because we're all trying to be very careful, we decided that we would share a meal, but we decided we would share that meal at lunchtime when it wasn't too warm or too cold. And we would share a meal outside where we knew that the wind was coming through. So we ended up going to we have a nice restaurant that has tables in a portico, and that the wind goes right through it to the golf course. And three of us ended up having dinner very early, and we had a table for six. So we were thinking consciously about taking care of ourselves, but we were also taking a little risk. And we're all okay because of that. But this pandemic has really created in us a place where we're not sure of some of our decisions. I have found once we have our gratitude and we think about the gratitude and we turn it outwards, we connect with other people. But not only do we connect by doing simple things, like you can write a note to the neighbor next door and say, we don't talk much if you're not close to them, but I'm really glad you're my neighbor because you keep your house so nice. Or I noticed the other day when I went to the mailbox that the mail people at our mailboxes are working very hard. I wonder if anybody ever says thank you to them. And just a simple card or a note of thank you is something that you can do to make yourself feel better. There are other ways to deal with the anxiety and the imbalance that we're feeling inside. Another way that I use, because I tend to be a little anxious at times, is one on our smartphones and on our iPads and on our computers, we can get apps, and the apps are very helpful. I have an app called Calm, Calm. And if I go to that app, I can listen to a 20-minute meditation, and it sort of calms me down. Personally, I'm not very good at meditating. However, meditating is very good for the soul, good for your body. But Calm is something that does help me. There are other apps. One app in the Calm you have to pay for, but the app called Virtual Hope Box, that's free, and you can go online to Virtual Hope Box, and they will have just little snippets that might help you think about how you feel and how you can make yourself feel a little better. Another app is called Headspace, and headspace.com, and they have things on that app that are very helpful, food for thought. um, my granddaughter just turned 16 about a month ago, and one of the people that I have in a group was talking about the AARP site. I'd never gone online to the AARP site. She said they have apps or they have activities that your grandchildren, questions they can ask you that you can answer to them, and it will help you stay in contact with them and learn about each other. So my granddaughter turned 16, and I wrote her a letter, and in the letter I wrote what it was like when I was 16. And we don't think about how different things are nowadays from the young kids to us. And it was really fun twice because I wrote it and I enjoyed writing it out to her. But she called me afterwards and she said, "Grandma, I just cannot believe that your father would put the telephone in the drawer at dinner time. I just can't believe that. Well, that's what happened in my house. When we had dinner, whoever was there, the phone went in the drawer. We took no calls. We took it off the hook. We didn't have a cell phone. That's the kind of phone we had. Excuse me. And that's what my father did. Well, she just thought that was the funniest thing. She has a telephone. They all have telephones after about 13 years old now. And they can be a double-edged sword. But in terms of us taking care of ourselves during this time, it can be a way that we connect with them and them alone, being special to them, not through their parents. Although, I stay connected with everybody. But that was a fun thing for me to do, to talk to my granddaughter about the letter. Physical activities are always a good way to lighten our mood because they create something called endorphins, and endorphins are a chemical within your body that raises your spirits a little bit. All physical activities are good for you. I have to admit, and my family laughs at me, I don't enjoy sweating. It is not something that I really like to do. However, movement, even just chair yoga, which I looked up on not only the AARP site, I wrote chair yoga, and they sent me to a YouTube online again, and you can do it at home online by yourself. Um, Another thing that is always very good for moving us from that part of sadness and loss into our gratitude and our hopefulness is any kind of artistic endeavor. One of the people in one of my groups makes quilts. And whenever she talks about putting this quilt together for people, her eyes just light up. I can see the difference in her body from her talking about something that she loves to do. Things like there's a crazy little game that you can get on your computer. A lot of my friends play it. It's called Friends with Words or Words with Friends. That is not my favorite one, but that's a good thing that you can do to stay in contact with each other, because I speak to one of my friends every day, but we get on the phone and it's not much different than the day before. So we don't have anything really much to talk about. The point is just to stay in contact with each other. Another thing that I have done that I'm very grateful that I did, when I was younger, I had a teacher in school and his name was Mr. Fanini. Mr. Fanini was my government teacher, and he was young, and his sister and I were friends outside of school. And I used to think I was so cool if I go to her house and he was there, because there was something about teachers. I just had this feeling when I was younger, they just took them and put them on the hook in the coat room after school. Didn't believe they had a life. But I would see Mr. Fanini and he had a life. So fast forward a million years, and my friend Donna, who who I was pretty close to, she married our friends, and she got very sick. And I ran into her when I lived in St. Augustine, and I said, "How's your brother?" And she told me that they made him retire because he had MS, and that he wanted to come down to Florida for a few months in the winter. So I hooked him up with a condo in St. Augustine. So I got to know him much better that way. And I hadn't seen him in such a long time. And the first time that I met him, I wasn't sure it was him. And I walked over and I thought, I'm going to take a chance here. And I said to him, because I was at a little workshop, and I said to him, I know this is the oldest story in the book, but you look familiar to me. And he laughed and he said, "Oh, I'm not from around here." And I explained to him, "Well, neither am I." And he said, "I'm from Michigan." And I looked at him. I said, "I'm from Michigan." And he said, "Well, I'm Jack Fanini." And I thought, oh my God, it's really Mr. Fanini. So I was so grateful to have made that friendship again. And when we moved to the villages, he came a couple of times to see me, but I've lost contact with him. So sitting around feeling sorry for myself made me think about maybe he needed somebody to talk to, or I could talk to him. So I wrote on Facebook to my friend Dave, "Where is Mr. Fanini?" And he wrote back that he lives in an assisted living, and he has a nephew that takes care of his affairs. So I wrote Mr. Fanini a letter too. And I told him how important he was in my life. He taught me about government. He taught me how important the vote was. He taught me to be interested in politics in general. And I was very grateful for that. Wrote the note, never thought another thing of it. And 2 days ago, I got a beautiful card from the man that takes care of his affairs. And he said that Mr. Fanini is not very good at writing anymore, but he wanted me to know that I lightened his day. And I felt the love again. It was something that I reached out, and when I reached out, it came back to me. These are the kind of things that we finally have time to do that we didn't have time to do for many years. I think that one of the things that we can do that will make us feel better that we often don't think about is anything musical. Music increases the endorphins, any kind of music. I read recently in an article that if you sing, your endorphin level goes up like 20%. If you sing with someone else, it doubles. The endorphins in your body are increased because of the endorphins in somebody else's body. And singing, you don't have to be the best singer in the world. My husband tells me about a story when he was in second grade. He went to a private school, parochial school actually, and they were at church and it was Christmas time. And he said, I'm in second grade. I was so proud. I knew all the words to all the songs and I was singing away. And the nun came over and said, Master Roger, you can just mouth the words. God will know what you're saying. And I looked at the nun and realized that nobody wanted to hear me sing. And really, it was sort of sad. He just wasn't a singer, but I talked him into it later. But singing is very important. Any kind of music is very important. Any of the arts are the kind of activities that you can do by yourself, and you can share them with other people. So you get to choose what you do. I really love this slide. I think it's very important. A physician once said, the best medicine for humans is love. Someone asked, what if it doesn't work? And he said, increase the dose. If you start feeling sad or lonely and you're not able to shift out of what's going on, and you're still not able to reach out for someone, I want you to do what I call a head check. Anybody that knows me knows that this is a big deal to me. I believe that there's a little voice inside of us that we all hear. And for most of us, we started hearing that voice when we were little. And it was a critical voice that chided us. Like the voice in my head would say, oh, I better not do that. My mother will kill me, if it was a bad thing. As we grew up, sometimes the voice wasn't very nice to us. But we are at an age now that voice that was with us when we took our first breath, we have time to make friends with that voice. If you hear the chiding, and I still hear it, I dropped something the other day and I could hear in my head, oh, Marianne, you're so stupid, just because. And I had to say to that voice, stop it. Be quiet. Don't be mean to me. Be kind to me. Tell me good things. I got in my head to control what was going on. And I felt much better that I had taken control over that. We have that still small voice that was with us when we took our first breath. And that still small voice will be with us when we take our last. And it is so very, very important to make friends with it. My final thing, my head check that I want you to think about is that all of us are trying the best that we can to stay in a spot where we are able to love our lives and look forward to something. But sometimes we find ourselves in a place that is so dark that we can't find our way out. And only you who are listening to this know where you are And if you are dark, and if you are sad, and if you are unable to move from this dark place, please seek help. One of my favorite things about living here in in the villages in this area is that there are people who are willing to help. That's why I put this slide in for the National Prevention Suicide Prevention. Write this number down if you're worried about yourself or someone else, because this is a very hard season, even in good times. I think it's very important that we understand that we're not alone, that we have power inside of ourselves to change the way that we think, and that we have ways to do that. Helps now. We have, the apps that I mentioned, that we didn't used to have those things, but they're a special thing. They can be a double-edged sword. Sometimes people can be very mean on the computer. I once recently checked, I had a bad situation. I ordered something to be delivered to my house. I ordered it, it was $19.99. It ended up being $50 by the time they delivered it. And I wrote on next door that I was frustrated over that. Well, and I said, is all I want to do is vent. I thought I wanted to vent on this little site that we have called Nextdoor. And to my surprise, a lot of people were not very nice to me. They said, well, that was a stupid thing to do. And they were not very nice. And I thought, well, I won't do that again. I don't want to listen to that again. So some of the things that you try, like calling a friend or writing a note or fixing something that you've been meaning to fix. We all have things in our house that we have been meaning to do. And now that we're home, we have time to do them. And we'll feel very good if we accomplish it. Those are the things that will take the time up, make us feel valued, and help us to get through this time. I hope that you've gotten a few tips, things like the apps on the computer, calling a friend, uh, uh, writing a list of what you're grateful for. You'll be very surprised what you come up with, things that you hadn't thought about. My sister, to my surprise, they lived out in the country and I went to visit her, and she had created a little garden, and she had created little, it was full of sugar water, but different colors for hummingbirds. And we just sat at the window and there were like 10 hummingbirds around. The most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I never knew that existed. She created that. She decided that. So maybe some of you have talents that I am not bringing up. And I hope that if you do, that you will feel comfortable enough to share them with someone else. This is a world that we get better if we help each other in. So this is my little talk, and I'm wondering if you have any questions that you'd like to ask. I'll be willing to try to help. Is there anybody that has a question? They can write it down if you want, and Lisa will help me with that. And if you don't, that's okay. We can just talk.
Well, Terri, I have a couple questions while we're waiting for people to write in or to raise their hands so we know that they have some questions. So I've listened to your talk and I understand what you're saying about dealing with time. What if people are getting more used to being alone? Is that okay?
Sure.
So is there something wrong if they really do like spending time alone?
I think it's a great opportunity. I think that we are in an age where it's a good thing to get comfortable being alone. A friend of mine said recently to me, I'm kind of liking this. Wasn't sure I was going to like it. I think it's wonderful if we learn to adjust to our surroundings. And I think we're given an opportunity to do that. If we feel, however, that being alone means that we have to cut ourselves off totally from the world, then we need to talk about it. But learning to be comfortable with yourself is a wonderful thing. One of the benefits of being alone is if you have a television, you get to have the clicker, If you're with somebody else in the household, you have to kind of negotiate those things. So being alone can be a
That's
very
true.
healthy thing.
It's
I see, it looks like Sandra. Sandra, do you have your hand up? Okay, you're just fixing things. All right. Are there any other questions?
So I have another question. Is it okay to just pretend that the holidays aren't here? You know, this is a hard time for a lot of families, and sometimes just ignoring the holidays. Is that okay to do, to just kind of maybe blur across the day, if maybe it's too painful to think about the people you're missing?
I think that's a great question. And I was asked that question. And I believe that if we pretend that the holiday doesn't exist, it's like having an elephant in our living room and we're not addressing the elephant in our living room. There are holidays, they are coming up. They came up last year in a different way than they're coming up this year. But I'm not so sure it's real healthy to just ignore the holiday. I think we need to acknowledge that it isn't what we'd like it to be. And I think with that acknowledgement, we acknowledge what I call the elephant. And then you can say to the elephant or to yourself, I think that I need to make it different. And if making it different means that I'm quiet, that I try something else, that I don't put Christmas things up, then that's all something that you're doing to take care of yourself. But I personally, I don't believe that we should ignore the holidays. Their holidays are there for primarily, as a child, learning about what that means. I learned about Christmas, Christ's birthday. It had a lot of value to me. In the Jewish faith, you're dealing with Hanukkah, and that has a lot of religious importance. It seems to me that this is the time we can examine those things on a personal level much better than we often do when the family's around. These are important days, so I would suggest not ignoring them. I would suggest starting to deal with the real significance of the holiday. If you are Christian, if you're a Jew, if you do Kwanzaa, think about the spiritual value in those holidays. And I think that you'll feel better about that.
Well, that's good to know. One of the things I'm going to do this year for Christmas dinner is I'm actually going to put my son's picture up at the table. So it'll just be 3 of us for Christmas, but I'm going to have my son's picture from Colorado sitting at the table thinking about his wedding next year. So I'm looking forward to what is coming, but maybe not so much what I've lost this year by not being able to see him and hug him for the last year. But I'm looking forward to his wedding coming up next year. So I think that's one of the ways that I'm going to be thinking about getting through missing my children, by just having their picture close at a special time, the meal time. And maybe I'll make a call to him after we've had dinner and maybe send him a picture saying next year we'll be together, I hope.
I think
So,
that's a great
yeah,
idea. It's a great idea. And I think that it will
thanks.
create value to you. I've decided, because nobody's talking much about Christmas, I have 3 friends that I usually would see, I trust to see. I think I'm going to spend Christmas alone. And I think at some point during the day, I'm going to look at my pictures. My husband loved photography, and I have millions of pictures that I have not even looked at. I just haven't looked at since he passed away. And it will be 10 years in January 11th since he passed away. So it's time now for me to go back and look at those memories. And I'm going to allow myself to do that. And the important thing is that I kind of made a plan for myself. I think that we need to sort of have a plan for that day. I have a very good friend whose husband passed away just before that. And so the holidays are very difficult. And I'm hoping that we can make a plan so that she can find something to be grateful for and feel comfort in. Well, I
Well,
want to,
Dr. Terri, thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us.
oh, you're very welcome. I enjoyed this very much. And I want to thank you very much from all of us at TLC We are a nonprofit. We're a club, actually. There's about 22 of us. We do trainings and support groups and presentations and one-on-one counseling, and all of this is free. We do, however, appreciate donations for things like being able to keep our Zoom subscriptions up. But and you may donate by going to our site, and our site online is called TLC-services.org, or you can call the number that's on the slide right now. I appreciate the time that you spent with me, and I wish you happy, healthy, hopeful holidays. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Dr.
Thank you.
Terri, we hope that you'll come back and give us more of your wisdom next year in 2021. You've been brilliant, and we're so blessed to be able to share this time with you. It's much needed during this time, and we hope that you'll be with us again in 2021 and share some more insight, because this is a long journey that we're on, and it's going to be bumpy for a little while. So thank you again for sharing your talents and your gifts with us. We've learned a lot, and hopefully we'll see everybody on the other side of this year. We'll be in 2021 when we come back again, and everybody will have made it through the holidays safe and with good mental health. So thank you again to TLC and the team there who brought us just amazing programming this year. We're very blessed to be able to be partnering with them. So again, my name is Lisa Honka, and I have a company called Your Key to Senior Living Options. I help seniors find resources in the area, such as independent living, assisted living, memory cares, but also support through looking at financial plans for them, long-term care insurance, or even in-home services or Meals on Wheels. So I'm here as a resource in the area. My services are free to families. And again, thank you so much. All of our programs will be on our website so that people can share them with those that haven't been able to click in on the Zoom calls that we've been having weekly. But again, thank you so much to TLC. You've been a blessing to the community. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us. We hope you have a safe holiday.